With the law and the president on his side, Mulholland set out in 1905 to build his aqueduct across the desert.
It was a great drama. It was a great epic drama, the building of that aqueduct. You had mule teams and you had men. They were working in desert heats, arid conditions.
Mulholland ordered 12-foot steel pipe forged in Germany and shipped around the Horn. 100,000 men and women worked on the aqueduct, but never more than a few thousand at a time because the exhausting and dangerous work kept turnover so high. With no air conditioning, no refrigeration, no hard hats, in 110-degree heat, they crossed the Mojave in 5 years with a pipe big enough to hold a locomotive.
This was, an aqueduct that would have reached all the way across Massachusetts and then almost all the way back through a desert with mountains. What they were really building was the world's longest garden hose. When the water came cascading down there, Mulholland, who was really exhausted at the time, gave what I think is the most concise dedication speech in history. He unfurled an American flag, he turned to the water, and he said, "There it is, take it."
Based on Mulholland's predictions, it was 4 times more water than Los Angeles could use.
Oh so slow from Oso Parkway. If you're on the San Diego South at Magnolia, that accident cleared to the right shoulder. We're clear back to the Westminster Mall with bumper to bumper through the beach cities. And if you're going to be making your way on the 91 freeway...
That moment actually has to be seen not just in terms of human history, however brief human history is. It has to be seen in terms of geological time. Here you have, for the eons, an environment now being profoundly changed by the changing course of that river. And that water, in effect, created contemporary Los Angeles.
It's your earthquake damage repair and remodeling headquarters this weekend.
Lies Sunday.
Owens Valley had in fact gotten off easy compared to Hetch Hetchy. Mulholland's aqueduct had only dewatered the southern half of the valley, leaving the northern towns and farms to flourish during World War I.
Well, Owens Valley was an absolute, you might say, showplace. Produced fruit that people from L.A. would go nuts over to get this fruit from here. I can remember when the sky would get black with flights of duck. This was one of the major flyways. Oh, absolutely black with them. I mean that. The sky would be black, and even for a day or two, or for hours and hours.
It was a great time to live up here. It was a very close-knit community, Every Saturday night, they'd keep the Opera House open all night, and they'd show the movie. When the movie was over, they'd push the chairs back, and everybody danced all night. Then they'd have a breakfast, and everybody go home back to their ranches at sunup, Did this every Saturday night, and it was a great time to live in the Owens Valley.
What few people knew was that William Mulholland was about to turn his attention to what remained of the Owens River.
This growing city of Los Angeles becomes like a vampire, making a direct connection to the major artery of the Owens Valley, which is the Owens River. And of course, imagine those ranchers who were initially told that Los Angeles would be their partner, their friend, that they would grow in prosperity along with the city, began to see that the vampire was sucking the lifeblood and that their fertile fields were becoming parched and non-productive.
In the wet years since 1905, relations between the city and the valley had been surprisingly cordial, but now there was drought. The city sunk 52 turbine wells into the valley floor to pump groundwater into the aqueduct, crippling surrounding ranches.
What people resented here, they didn't have the option. They didn't have a choice. And the pressure that built over 20 years and the way it was done, and it's all water we're talking about. They could care nothing about this property.
On Sunday, my mother would take me for drives, and she would always talk about apple orchards and peach orchards. And it wasn't until years later that I realized, because growing up in Bishop, we were surrounded by sagebrush. It was always dry. It was always dusty. There was always dust in the air. And I couldn't even imagine what my mother was talking about. I couldn't imagine. And it took me until a young adult to realize that it was much different at one time. I would have liked to have seen what my grandparents saw there. I'd like to see the green. I'd like to see the orchards. It must have been gorgeous. It must have been gorgeous. I mean, I think that the Owens Valley is beautiful now. I grew up there. And it's beautiful now. So can you imagine what it was like when my grandfather was there, when my great-grandfather was there? It could make me cry.
Anger mounted as Mulholland's men cut ranchers' canals. The city bought more land, siphoned off more and more water. Half the crops were gone by 1924. Schools and businesses began to close. Owens Lake went bone dry.
They kept slowly taking away the water from the canals and the ditches and everything, and slowly but surely, you know, they got everything siphoned down, and so the land, the trees, and the old farmsteads, they all died off, and all the old orchard died off, and they're all gone, and now all the houses are all gone. So they just turned it back into the desert as it was, basically.